Touch the side of your head right now. Feel the solid shape of your skull under your fingers. You've been told your entire life that somewhere inside that shell, hidden behind bone and tissue, your mind is sitting there, thinking your thoughts and watching the world like a screen. But what if that picture is wrong? What if the thing you call your mind doesn't live in a single place at all, but stretches outward, beyond your skin, into the space around you, carried by light, sound, and the quiet exchange between you and everything you touch? Feynman loved breaking ideas like this apart, not to make them mysterious, but to make them honest. He would say, start with what you can actually observe. When you see a tree, where is that tree? You might point outside, to the leaves and the sky. But the image of that tree exists as a pattern of light that enters your eyes, triggers signals, and becomes something you experience as seeing. The tree you know is not just out there. It is also in the process that connects you to it. Now think about sound. A voice across a room becomes vibrations in the air. Those vibrations move your eardrums, shift tiny bones, spark electrical activity, and turn into meaning. The thought you hear is not trapped in the speaker's head. It travels through space before it ever becomes part of yours. This is where the boundary begins to blur. Your experience of reality is built from a constant exchange with the world. Light enters. Sound arrives. Pressure, temperature, and motion leave their marks. What you call inside is shaped every moment by what is outside. Even memory, which feels deeply private, depends on this connection. The memories you carry were formed from events that once existed in the world beyond you. They are echoes of interactions, not creations that appeared from nothing. So when you say your mind is in your brain, you are only telling half the story. The brain is the place where these signals are gathered and transformed, but the mind is the process itself, the ongoing relationship between you and everything around you. Feynman would point out that physics does not describe a universe of isolated objects. It describes a universe of interactions. Forces, fields, and particles do not exist alone. They exist in relation to one another. In that sense, thinking may not be a thing you have, but something that happens when you meet the world. The space between you and what you observe is not empty. It is filled with the pathways your awareness travels. If that is true, then your mind is not sitting quietly behind your eyes. It is reaching outward every second, touching light, sound, and motion, and becoming itself through the simple, endless act of connecting with a universe that never stops answering back. If your mind is shaped by what reaches you, then the idea of a fixed, solid self begins to soften. The person you believe you are is not a statue carved once and left untouched. It is more like a river, changing its shape with every new stream that flows into it. Every experience you have is a meeting point. Light from a screen, a voice from a friend, the feeling of the ground under your feet, all arrive at the same place and become part of what you call me. The world is constantly writing itself into you, and you are constantly writing yourself back into the world through your actions. This makes time feel different. The past is not gone. It is stored as patterns that continue to influence how you respond to what happens next. The future is not a blank page. It is a field of possibilities shaped by the signals you send forward right now. You stand in the middle of that flow, never fully separate from either side. Feynman often explained that even the most basic physical objects are not truly solid. At the deepest level, everything is interaction. Forces holding particles in place, fields stretching across space, exchanges of energy that never stop moving. What feels stable is really a dance so fast and so balanced that it gives the illusion of stillness. Your identity may work the same way. It feels like a single, continuous thing, but it is made from countless moments of awareness stitched together by memory and expectation. Take away the flow of experiences, and the idea of a permanent you begins to fade. This does not make you less real. It makes you more connected. You are not a closed system sealed inside a skull. You are an open process, shaped by relationships, environments, and the quiet physical rules that let information move from place to place. Even your thoughts depend on this exchange. The words you use to think were learned from voices outside you. The images in your imagination are built from sights you once saw. The very structure of your inner world is borrowed from the outer one. So when you look at another person, you are not facing a separate, isolated mind. You are meeting a different flow of experiences, a different river shaped by different encounters, running alongside your own for a moment in time. The boundary between you and everything else becomes thinner than it seems. It is not a wall. It is a surface where signals cross, meanings form, and reality becomes something that can be shared. In this view, the mind is not a thing you possess, it is an activity you participate in, a continuous exchange between what is happening within you and what is unfolding beyond you, creating a sense of self that is never finished, never fully contained, and always, in some quiet way, reaching outward to become something new. Once you start seeing the mind as an exchange rather than a container, the world around you begins to feel different. Objects are no longer just things sitting quietly in space. They become participants in the same process that creates your awareness. Take something simple, like a cup resting on a table. It feels solid, separate, complete. But the moment you look at it, light leaves the surface, travels across the room, and becomes part of your experience. The cup you know is not just the object itself. It is the meeting between the object and you. Feynman loved pointing out that even at the smallest scales, nothing stands alone. Atoms hold together because of forces that reach across tiny distances, pulling and pushing without ever touching in the way we imagine. What feels like contact is really a balance of invisible influences. Your senses work the same way. When you touch the table, your hand does not truly meet it. The electrons in your skin and the electrons in the surface repel each other. The feeling of contact is created by a field of forces pushing back. What you experience as the world is built from these unseen interactions. This means the space between you and everything else is not empty. It is active. It carries the messages that make sight, sound, and touch possible. Without that space and the rules that govern it, there would be no experience at all, just isolated pieces that could never connect. Think about how quickly your attention can shift. A sound behind you, a flash of movement in the corner of your eye, a sudden thought. Each one pulls part of the world into focus. Awareness is like a spotlight moving across a stage that is always full, always changing. But the spotlight does not belong only to you. The world is constantly shining back. Every surface reflects light. Every object vibrates with heat. Every movement sends waves through the air and the ground. You are surrounded by a constant conversation, most of which you never consciously notice. This is where the idea of inside and outside begins to blur again. The patterns in your brain are shaped by the patterns in the world, and the patterns in the world are influenced in small but real ways by what you do. A footprint in the sand, a word spoken into a room, a signal sent into space. These are traces of your presence that become part of the environment others will encounter. Feynman would say that the beauty of physics is not just in discovering what things are made of, but in seeing how everything fits together. The universe is not a collection of separate pieces. It is a web of relationships. In that web, your mind is not a node sitting alone. It is a path, a route along which light, sound, memory, and meaning travel, turning the endless exchange of the cosmos into the simple, personal experience of being here, right now, aware that you are part of something far larger than yourself. As you follow that path of connection outward, the idea of a private, sealed reality begins to fade even more. The world you experience is not something you simply receive. It is something you help create through the way you move, focus, and respond. Look at a crowded street. Hundreds of people, each with their own flow of thoughts and sensations, crossing through the same space. The scene feels shared, yet every person is living a slightly different version of it. The sounds that catch your attention, the faces you notice, the details you remember, all depend on where you stand and what you care about. Feynman often used simple examples to show how observation changes what is observed. In physics, measuring a system can disturb it, even in tiny ways. In life, attention does something similar. What you focus on grows larger in your experience. What you ignore fades into the background. This makes reality feel less like a fixed picture and more like a collaboration. The world offers endless signals, but you select which ones become part of your story. Your mind is not just a window. It is a filter, a spotlight, and a translator all at once. Even your body plays a role in this creation. The way you move through space changes the information that reaches you. A step to the left reveals a new angle. A turn of the head brings a different horizon into view. Motion and perception are woven together so tightly that separating them becomes almost impossible. Think about how different the same room feels in the dark. The walls are still there. The objects have not moved, but without light, the entire space becomes something else in your mind. Fear, imagination, and memory rush in to fill the gaps. The absence of signals becomes a signal of its own. This shows how much of your experience depends on what is missing as much as on what is present. Silence gives meaning to sound. Stillness gives meaning to motion. Darkness gives meaning to light. Your awareness is shaped by contrasts, not just by things. In this sense, the mind is not only reaching outward, it is also shaping inward, building a world from both the messages it receives and the spaces between them. Feynman believed that the joy of science comes from realizing that the universe is not obligated to match your intuition. It follows its own rules, and your understanding grows when you learn to follow along. The same may be true of your inner life. It does not exist to fit a simple story. It exists as a complex, shifting pattern of relationships. So when you ask where your mind truly is, the answer becomes harder to point to. It is in the light that enters your eyes. It is in the sounds that reach your ears. It is in the choices you make that alter what happens next. It is in the space where the world and your attention meet. And in that meeting, moment by moment, a personal version of reality is quietly, continuously being made. As this personal version of reality continues to form, a deeper question begins to surface. If your experience is shaped by an ongoing exchange with the world, then where does control truly come from? Are you directing this flow, or are you being carried by it? Every decision feels like a private act, something that rises from inside and moves outward. But look closely, and you can see how much of every choice is built from what has already reached you. A memory suggests a path. A sound interrupts a thought. A word you once heard becomes the sentence you speak. The present moment is always leaning on the past. Feynman liked to remind people that even the simplest physical events depend on long chains of cause and effect. A falling leaf is guided by air currents shaped by distant weather. A spark in a circuit depends on electrons that were part of atoms forged in ancient stars. Nothing begins completely on its own. Your actions follow the same pattern. The ideas you have today are influenced by conversations you had years ago, by books you read, by places you visited, by people you met. The now you experience is a crossroads where countless earlier signals arrive and mix together. This does not mean you are powerless. It means you are a participant in a larger system. Your responses become new signals that travel forward, shaping what others will encounter in their own moments of choice. Think of a simple smile shared with a stranger. It might change their mood, which changes how they speak to someone else, which changes a decision made later that day. The path is invisible, but the influence is real. A small action can ripple outward in ways you will never see. The universe works like this on every scale. A star exploding in a distant galaxy sends out energy that may one day become part of the light reaching another world. A shift in a gravitational field alters the path of objects millions of kilometers away. Everything is connected through lines of influence that stretch across space and time. Seen this way, the mind is not just an observer of the universe. It is one of the ways the universe moves. Your thoughts, words, and actions are part of the same web of cause and effect that governs planets, particles, and light itself. The difference is that you can become aware of your place in that web. You can notice how signals arrive, how they shape you, and how you send new ones back out. That awareness creates a strange kind of freedom. Not the freedom of being separate from the world, but the freedom of understanding how deeply you are woven into it. You are not standing outside the flow, making choices in isolation. You are standing within it, shaping and being shaped at the same time. A living point where the past arrives, the future begins, and the endless exchange of the universe briefly becomes a single conscious moment of being. And as that moment of being stretches forward, it leaves behind a quiet trail. Not a mark you can always see, but a pattern that becomes part of the world others will move through. The air you breathe out mixes with the air someone else will breathe in. The light reflected from your face travels outward. carrying an image of you to places you will never visit. Even the heat of your body drifts into the room, a soft signal that you were here, if only for a while. Feynman often spoke about the pleasure of finding out that the universe is more subtle than it first appears. Here, the subtlety is not just in particles and forces, but in the way presence itself spreads. To exist is to send something forward, whether you intend to or not. Think about the messages you leave behind. A sentence written in a book, a recording stored in a machine, a memory held by another person. These are extensions of you that continue to interact with the world after you have moved on. They become part of someone else's experience, shaping thoughts that will never be yours to hear. In this sense, the mind is not confined to the present moment. It has a kind of reach through time. The ideas you share today may become the starting point for someone else's questions tomorrow. The choices you make may open paths that others will walk long after you are gone. The universe itself is doing something similar. It carries forward the consequences of every event. The glow of ancient stars still fills space. The patterns set in motion at the beginning of time still influence how galaxies form and how matter gathers. You are a small but genuine part of that long story, not an observer standing outside it, but a chapter written into it by the simple fact that you exist and interact. So when you ask where your mind truly is, the answer becomes less about location and more about reach. It is in the signals you receive. It is in the responses you send. It is in the traces you leave behind in the world and in other people. The space between you and everything else is not a gap. It is a bridge, a living pathway where light, sound, memory, and meaning travel back and forth, turning a vast, impersonal universe into something that can be felt, remembered, and shared. And for a brief moment in the endless flow of time, you are one of the places where the universe becomes aware of itself, not by looking inward alone, but by reaching outward, connecting, and continuing its quiet, unbroken conversation with everything that exists.